Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. We are the Hologrumps. I'm Liam.
And I'm Colum.
And we're here today to review this week's episode of WandaVision, episode 5, titled All New Halloween Spooktacular. Oh, I love the word spooktacular. But before we start, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you like what you see here for future content. Okay, so Colin, what did you think of this week's episode of WandaVision?
You know what? I really like this episode. I like this episode because it had a bit of everything in it. Now, I have criticisms about it that I'll save more to the end of the review, but it's actually a really good episode. Opens up a lot of doors, gives us a lot of questions to think about. They really set the bar high with the budget on the visual effects as well, which is amazing. It was movie effects inside of a TV series. Now I know they spent tens of millions, hundreds of millions maybe on it, but yeah, it was really good. I thought it was a really good episode.
I think the budget's around 200 million for the series, so it's kind of the same as a film.
But when you think about obviously the WandaVision stuff, every single episode has its own theme song. Which is hiring people to write a theme song, you know. You've got new actors coming in every single episode. The opening to this episode was Malcolm in the Middle kind of homage, so that's early 2000s.
And the other thing we get from that opening is the show does obviously include Agnes as a main character, and she is so tight to the family at this point that she's even included in the opening credits. So what is her special significance to the show? Because if they're going to this extent to include her, she has to be more than just a random character. So I think that's the first thing to point out here. I did see an interesting theory, which I found was kind of funny, about linking her to Doc Ock from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, just because of a deleted scene at the end where, I know they don't necessarily have to be canon, but at the end of the film she jumps into the multiverse. So what if she ended up inside the MCU?
That would be pretty. I think it's a big stretch. I think it's a weird stretch as well, especially considering they actually have Alfred Molina as Doc Ock in the newest Spider-Man movie as well.
Yeah, but they do have 3 Spider-Men in the new Spider-Man film.
Yeah, true.
So they could be linking everything together. And of course, she wouldn't show up as a cartoon character. And also, it is Catherine Hahn still playing so whatever. The other thing as well is how much control does the simulation, or does Wanda have over her, or is she still controlling Wanda? I know that it's still debatable. The only reason I say that is because we see during the episode Vision walks around, and this ties into a later theory, but Vision's walking around and everything's kind of stagnant, and he does try to talk to somebody and she just ignores him, even though he keeps saying, sorry miss, are you okay? But when he talks to Agnes, she
can
starts
talk,
talking back.
yeah, and she's right at the edge of it as well.
Yeah, so you'd think that she'd have an even worse time, and I don't think they would have overlooked this. So maybe Agnes just wasn't aware of how exactly to play, under the spell or under the trance of Wanda.
But then why was she out there? Obviously to provoke him.
Maybe to lead him there, because when he flew into the sky, he was drawn to the attention of this car that was just sitting there in the outskirts.
Yeah.
And then even after he wakes her up, she starts the car and then turns around and it's just back into her character. And Wanda doesn't seem to know that Vision is out there. In fact, we know she does know because her kid has to draw attention to that. So why would she be animating Agnes all the way out in the outskirts?
Unless it's because Agnes is so significant to the plot of Wanda or her shows that she has to animate her everywhere. I don't know. I think it's well worth considering, and it'll be such a disappointment if we find out she's just another person in it. And I say that every time we think of stuff for Agnes, but I just want.
Yeah, I mean, the more they go into it, the more disappointing it'll be. Because I know a few episodes back I was saying, it'd be okay to have a bit of subversion like that, where she's just a normal person. But I think the amount of signs they've given us, like even in the or even in the scene where they're identifying townspeople, they don't have an ID card for her, so she must be from somewhere that they're just not sure, and she's not their missing person.
Oh yes, something we forgot to mention earlier on. So anyone who enters inside of the Hex, as it's called, inside of WandaVision, they get their DNA changed. Now, there is a thought that this could actually be how mutants come into the equation of the MCU. People having their DNA changed. And what if, because Wanda is jumping forward through time in her TV series, so to speak, when she gets to the modern day, she encompasses the whole world and everyone's DNA gets changed so that there's a statistical chance that everyone could be a mutant, or 1% of the population, or 0.1% could be.
Yeah, because if they do that, then that's a good way of, the way the mutants, they only some people end up with them. So due to Monica changing, are they going to have it a case that, that means everyone has to change? So now is Darcy a mutant? Now are all the soldiers who went inside mutants? Probably not. So yeah, that's actually a very good point. It could be the catalyst that starts off the mutations in the human race. Because up until this point, all of the people with superpowers in the MCU, are they kind of like experiment type things? Like, you have Captain America, then you have Captain Marvel obviously got the powers from the Tesseract. There's no natural born mutants in the MCU at this point, are there? Or do Quicksilver and
no,
Maximoff?
they were experimented on by the Mind Stone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's actually a good way of bringing them all in. But then, is this kind of a red herring for the multiverse, bringing this Quicksilver in to make us think that they're actually bringing in the MCU? And this ties into a thought that we were having, that it's possible the simulation, or whoever's controlling Wanda, if somebody is controlling her, adjusts the simulation to bring in whatever is going on in her life. So she says to Monica in episode 3 that her brother's dead. But then in episode 5, she tells her kids that her brother's alive and far, far away from here. And then lo and behold, Quicksilver from the Fox X-Men universe shows up. It's possible whoever's controlling Wanda just looked out into the multiverse and was like, where's her brother? He's meant to be alive far, far away from here. That implies that she knows that he's alive. So that would
require something with incredible power to look out into the multiverse and pull in her brother,
Yeah, that could be the thing that leads it in. This could be a red herring, and he's not from the multiverse, but this is going to end up exploding into the multiverse. Because the other thing as well is he keeps trying to ask Wanda these questions that
we want to know.
We want to know, yeah. He shouldn't know these things. Like, why does he know Vision is dead? He's only just got there.
Why does he know that all the kids just conveniently showed up? Where had she been keeping the kids? He explicitly says, like, oh, so where are you keeping the kids all this time? Yeah, I didn't want to drain the battery. Obviously, probably just had them asleep or something like that.
Yeah, why does he know that they were never there before? Because he was never there before. This is his first time showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Do people come into this simulation with prior knowledge, but nobody else has?
Or is it once again the case that because he was created by Wanda, he's been imparted with a part of Wanda's subconscious and he's not actually real at all? Another point that, to not go too far down the rabbit hole and just to keep moving on, is the fact that Quicksilver seems to have his powers from the MCU and not his powers from Fox.
Just the way his animation works.
Yeah, his animation is the same. However, there is also a bit of tongue-in-cheek in that, and the fact that he's in a TV show, so he can get away with stuff that he shouldn't be able to get away with anyway, like going out the door and then suddenly coming back dressed in different clothes. So yeah. We don't know. That would have been a good way to give away where he was from, but they're kind of playing it fast and loose with how fast he is, considering the original Pietro got shot by a bullet, and this guy from Fox could pick bullets out of the sky. Like he saved an entire building full of people in a millisecond when it was blowing up, because he heard he heard it blowing up. Like, it's crazy. Now in this episode, I think they really pushed the budget incredibly high. This is where they spend all their money on watching Vision die. It's crazy, like the amount of visual effects that go into this. I'm sure someone who actually has any sort of training or knowledge of visual effects can say that's actually pretty easy to do. But to me, it was really, really stunning to be able to see stuff like that inside of a 44-minute episode. That was crazy.
Yeah, they have the talent, the writing talent behind it that makes it compelling to watch and follow, and then they also have the visual, the visual talent behind it to make it just cinematic in the way it shows it. It's like, it's like the way Star Trek Discovery has half. It has the visual element, but it's cheaped out on the writing element. Whereas this is both, and you can see how important it is to still have a good story, which they have. The other thing about Vision when he was dying in that scene, for the entire scene, I was looking at his Mind Stone, and it never disappeared. I don't know. I just found it interesting. I would have thought that would be like one of the first things to disappear
because it isn't real. Yeah,
it isn't real. But even when he was curling up into a little ball, his Mind Stone was still there. Is this or some kind of new Mind Stone? Is she creating a Mind Stone? It's probably just something they overlooked because, they probably just filmed these at different times. Then also just, for some reason, the scene where Darcy then runs up when Vision is dying and she's like, guys, you gotta help him. It just reminded me of The Room, where Billy or whatever is getting beaten up on the roof and they run up and they're like, what's going on here?
No, it reminded me of The Day the Earth Stood Still, the Keanu Reeves one.
Oh God, I haven't seen that. No, actually I haven't. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's just a load of army men standing around a wall of energy and they shoot the guy that comes out.
But I thought that was kind of the weakest part of the episode, just the circumstances that led to this point. I think the outside part was actually the weakest. Just, I didn't find it was necessary. The whole escape thing. They have a fight with Hayward, and then they beat up some guys, and then they just walk straight back in and access the computer, and then they're all still there at the same right time anyway. Darcy still runs out and is like, "Oh, what's going on here?"
I didn't think too much into it. I think they could have lost it. Didn't need it. They actually, well, to be fair, they did need it to move the story on outside of WandaVision. Like they needed to move on how they deal with Wanda. But I think it was a little bit convoluted in how people got to certain points, and they were all in their convenient spots. And I genuinely thought that a car wasn't going to be able to outrun that shockwave, and I don't know why they made it so suspenseful.
I love how none of them could get away, despite there were people already in cars, and Hayward manages to run back, get into a car, and they drive off, and that's the only one that gets away.
He's a terrible character. I just want to say it. He's a terrible character. He's really two-dimensional. Like, at the start of it, I thought he was quite interesting. He was this person who was burdened by the fact that so many people had died, and he was made director de facto because all these people were gone. And he's done a terrible job of being a director.
Yeah, I don't know why they went down this route with him. I mean, they could make a complicated character, but they seem to just made an asshole. And I think it's gonna end one way with Monica, two ways, I suppose. Monica will either kill him, or more likely she'll just, kicks him to the curb and says, "Oh, you're fired. Get off my turf, or get out of my building."
Jobs don't work like that.
I know.
Walk up to a CEO.
I just feel like that's the way it's going to be, and she's going to read some paper and it'll be like from Maria Rambeau, and she's like, "Oh, I always wanted my daughter Monica to take over as director," and she'll be like, "You kept this from me? I'm taking this to the board."
That's such nepotism, it's painful.
Imagine. No, okay, that'd be dreadful. If that happens,
I think he just needs to be humbled. I think they just need to humble him or something. We've had a lot of characters who started out as very annoying negative characters. Martin Freeman's character in the MCU was quite an annoying character, and then he got forced into the thick of it, and then he became a good character because he was fighting alongside the heroes and not just supervising them.
Yeah, like they're always good characters to redeem. Like they were able to redeem Tony Stark, who was building weapons of mass destruction, so anyone can be redeemed. Anyone can be turned into a hero.
Now,
not
Liam,
saying I care that much about Hayward, but anyway.
Now, Liam, was this a good episode?
I give it I don't know, if I'm going to rate it, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, just because there was the outside part I didn't find that compelling, but I loved the inside part with Quicksilver.
Yeah, he was such a different character.
Yeah. What about you?
I really liked it. Like I said, I can take it or leave it with the outside stuff. It needed to be done. I kind of respect that. I'm curious. Once again, it keeps me coming back. I want to see more. That's the important part about a TV series, if you don't want to see the next episode, if you're not really wanting to see the next episode, then are you really enjoying it? And in this situation, I think I'm really enjoying it because I want to see what happens next.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, it'll all pay off and not go the route of Game of Thrones.
Okay, so if you like what you saw here, if you enjoy what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button for more content of this nature. And if you do have any opinions that you want to share with us, feel free to comment below as well, because we always like to respond to people who comment. So, for the Hologrumps, I've been Colum.
And I've been Liam.
And remember, existence is futile.